Well, check your time. The time is 9 minutes past 7. Is the time of the night where we bring you yet again another special broadcast brought to you by the Department of Transport and all its entities in collaboration with the government communications, that would be GCIS. This is the second program in the 5-part series. The department decided to say, look, uh, we have all these programs that we're doing as a department. We have all these opportunities that are there. But from time to time, as a department, we get the sense that it is only our relatives, our friends, that get to understand about these opportunities. The department has decided to set aside a great deal of money to engage in an outreach programs, to engage in the phone-in programs, to make sure that the understanding of the people of South Africa in terms of the work, the program, and the mandate of the department gets to be heightened. That people get to understand what the department and its entities is doing. Started last week. Last week, we had an opportunity to deal with one topic. It was called maritime. And we had the DDG Untate Dumisani Ntuli. I'm sure you remember what is it that the big chief shared with us in terms of the opportunities offered by this department and its entities. Today, I'm not going to steal anything. Guess what? We brought to you someone who has a black belt. Let me tell you about this person. Sometimes back, she used to feed us. She used to feed us. She used to feed us together with her mother. She's protesting. She's saying, no, it was not me. It was my mother. She used to feed us, government. She used to give us food. And today, she is giving us content that is going to enrich our understanding. Guess who is this? I'm sure you know. You used to buy from the Mara's shop. The person we're having today is the Acting Chief Director of Rail Infrastructure and Industry Development, Mekoni Maleo. She's shy. She does not want me to say all these nice things about her. Like I said, she's got a black belt in the content we are going to pursue with you tonight. Remember, the program is being facilitated from our Cape Town studios. Who's piloting our plane tonight is Mfundo Magaba. He will be taking your calls. Remember, it's in Cape Town. The number to call if you want to engage us tonight is 0800 314 446. I know you don't have a pen. I will keep on repeating this number. I know you're going there to get your pen now. The number to call for you to participate in tonight's broadcast is 0800 314 446. Let's welcome Umekoni Malewo in tonight's program. Welcome, me.
Good afternoon, Tate, and to all the listeners.
Wow. I told you, she has a black belt. You see, to prove that she has a black belt, listen what I'm going to ask her right now. And you will be the judge. You will tell me if she's competent enough to talk about what we're going to be talking about tonight. Memaleo, please share with the listeners. What are your responsibilities? And for how long have you been working in this chief directorate?
Okay, good afternoon again, listeners. I'm really hoping by the end of the show, I'll have the black belts to show. I want him to show it to me when I leave and show it to my family. Okay, I joined the Department of Transport in 2007, having worked in the transport space, research, transport infrastructure, and in community development projects, and also in productivity. And when I joined the department, I was only dealing with rail operations, and then I moved to infrastructure, rail infrastructure, and industrial development. So the department is actually divided into modes, as you have heard that today we're doing the rail mode. At the department, basically, we a policy department or policy development department. So the branch itself is divided into 3 areas. There's an area that deals with entity oversight, and there's an area, a section that deals with the management of infrastructure and industry development. That would be myself and my team members, and the development of policy and regulations in terms of economic and safety regulations. But what I also want to clarify is that in South Africa we have a dual portfolio in terms of rail, the rail sector. The department is a shareholding department for PRASA and the Railway Safety Regulator. And the Department of Public Enterprises is responsible for Transnet, which deals with the freight business.
There you are. There you are. I told you, she has a black belt. You see, when we say to people, this particular job will require an experienced person who possesses 3 to 5 years of experience. She has 11 years. Then talk to me and tell me if she is not having a black belt. I know my story. I know the difference between 3 years and 11 years. She's been with the department for the past 11 years. Now, Memaleo, in the next coming 60 minutes, I want you to share with the listeners the objectives of tonight's program. You would say this program is successful tonight because you would have achieved 1, 2, and 3. Please outline those things so that the learners get to understand that we have achieved what we sought out to achieve.
Okay, so basically the discussion is going to be more focused on commuter rail, which is your suburban rail. And in terms of South Africa, they travel from the townships into the cities or within the cities. And we all know, I'm sure we've all heard that the rail sector is considered as to be one of the well-established and growing industries in terms of socio-economic development and the creation of job opportunities. And clearly, this is where we want to steer the whole development and improvement into the sector.
You see, tonight, like I've said, we are using Mfundo in Cape Town to steer the ship for a number of reasons that I'm going to be discussing with the listeners later. But in the meantime, you're still tuned to the special broadcast brought to you by the Department of Transport in collaboration with GCIS. Tonight, we are discussing passenger rail. Please, let us not discuss aviation. If you have a question about that, we will refer it to the relevant colleagues, because we know we are one government, we work together, but for the benefit of other listeners, let's talk about passenger rail. Mama Lebo, let's talk about the opportunities that one will get to find when you talk passenger rail. What are the For instance, we know, just like all these other countries, South Africa was hit by a great deal of unemployment. Now, people who are sitting there and they're listening to this program, before we go to the details, let's talk about the opportunities found in this particular sector.
Okay. I have to start by talking about the current initiatives which have to do with the revitalization of the sector. In the past years, there has not been enough funding to the sector. And since the new, democracy we have had funding coming through into the sector with the purpose of benefiting everyone in the country, and especially the commuting parties and the working class. Because when in a society you have people that can afford and those that can't afford, and those that would really rely and depend on the public services. And that's where we want to get to. In terms of the opportunities, because the sector is being revitalized, it comes up with opportunities for business, it comes up with opportunities for careers. And because the rail sector is just so broad, there are current opportunities and opportunities that will be coming up into the future.
I like the idea, when we're addressing issues, we do not necessarily talk yesterday and talk today. We talk about the future. We'll revisit that. But as we're still waiting for our callers, because I know since the beginning of this week, they've been engaging us. And we told them, wait, Wednesday is coming. You will ask these questions on Wednesday. I'm sure you are intimidating them. They are scared. But Mfundo is going to get back to us. Now, we get to be exposed to a number of things that stand in the way of the service delivery. You will find people, for instance, in some of our areas, they do not have, let's say, houses at that point in time. They will go and ban the clinics. They don't have the clinics. They will go and ban the schools. Something happens because maybe the conductor in the trains rub them in the wrong way. They go out there and ban the entire thing. I'm trying to get the sense from you. When it comes to this particular rail infrastructure that we're talking about, what are some of the impediments that gets in the way of service delivery? And in your opinion, what do you think should happen to undo that?
Okay, when it comes to service delivery, I think the government needs to understand, or we at least trying to understand, that the ordinary person out there, when they are thinking about a service, they see government as one party. And what happens in terms of the passenger rail is that some of the service delivery protests spill over into the rail network and into the infrastructure network. Hence, I think by the end of today, I would be quite pleased if I have tried to educate the listeners in terms of what is this passenger rail, what is this rail sector. Let's try and demystify it from a different angles. It's a list of elements that I'm going to name. The first one is safety and security, and I'm sure a lot of people would have something to say about that. And the second one would be the infrastructure modernization and upgrades. So that is also the responsibility of the rail operator, and planning for it. Now, in terms of planning, you've got different stakeholders. You've got your local municipalities, you've got your provincial, and you've got your local stakeholders, and you've got ordinary community members. So the communities have to form themselves into forums, of course working with their councillors, so that the message gets through, because if they are not together, the messages will come, in piecemeal. But if they put them together as one, then the message would then come across.
Guess what? We had a caller during the week. The name is Peto. Peto is on the line now, all the way from Klerksdorp. He wants to ask a question. And Tate Peto, you are on air.
And that Lennox.
Ayara.
le kae ra
o monate o jwang ntate
ntate re tlhama le
ke tshwere mme khoni mo
ke tshepo ntate
o ke tshepo ai ke kopa tshwarelo ntate tshepo ke tshwere mme khoni mo
mme khoni
Dumela ntate Tshepo.
mme le tlotse ma
Re tlotse ntate.
mme we man na concern ka potso ka ke concerning security sa especially mo di-traineng tse tsa local
Eh.
because last week palami trainer from Kempton Park to Tembisa
Eh.
and then go tswa mo stationeng sa bofelo sa King Calfontein our Tembisa security ka re ga security sa selo ka re polokile ka security mo because of and not only security but gape le o ka re di-coach tsa lona di bikinyana ga di kgone go thipa ya batho di go etsa batho ba bantsi ka nako especially ka nako tsa selo tsa chaile ga batho ba go tshwaisa o fela trainer ha e tswa mole batho ba itshweletse ko ntle and then go tswa le mo pele pele ke barela mo pele ga trainer mo pele ba shebile tsa eba mo pele mo shebile tsa eba mo pele mo thoko ba ba itshweletse mo e tletse gotlhe ko ntle le ka mogala so now ke ipotsa gore na re transfer a situation ile sa batho ba ditso ba re because ke ntse di gala every day because ke palami trainer a le mo tshwedi yotlhe and then ke le bella mo ke ntse tsa gala every day and security le mo but go controller ya mbuntsi wa batho ba ka security only few 5 people or 10 people kana go tsa di selo tsa wa tsa go tshai and then later ba ya go mo nako ya falele wa re tsa kgone go ketsa gongwe makhoutse ka pana go be le trainer se ilatelana go ba accommodate batho botlhe because of kana go tsa tshile batho ba nna ba ntsi and safety ya batho le kana kwa teng le wena ba go phusha fela and then o fetsa wa go tsa o fetsa o wetse ko ntle go wetse mo ntho mo le be go gatrena le go gata mo because of ntho tse di etsagalang mo le tsa yang go sireletsa batho because ntho tse di galang kana go tsengata ke batho ba lemala and then batho go e fetsa etsa batho ba fetsa ba kwata thata ntse di galang go tsotlhote batho ba sise di trainer go ba etsa a ke tlogeletse ntho go sa lone ntse go ya sa lone ba tsano ka re go ntse ya safety ya batho ke one tseletsang etsa ntho tse because of go safety ga e bonagale mma ya batho ba so le ya go ka sireletsa batho ba palami ba trainer ba palami ba lona mo na go ntse
ntate Tshepo o mametse radio station efe
Live FM
big ups to Live FM in Klerksdorp. Now this is going to be a competition. We are not going to end this program until we have callers from across the country. On the line we have Patko. Patko, what is your question today? Our regular caller. Yes. O monate o jwang ntate?
Amnate ke a phela mme khone le wena ke a o dumedisa ka boikokobetso
Dumela ntate Patko.
ke ikutlwa ke le motlotlo ore ke bue le lone thapameng ya kajeno
Ke a leboha.
ke na le potso tse tharo empa ha ke tla kopanya puo tla bua Sexhosa ke bue Sesotho
O lokile ntate Patko.
ba tla o tseba ha le tswa lefapheng la dipalangwane re a tseba hore nakong e ngata especially o di-train ne o utswa di-cable a utswa di-cable o fumana hore no di-service tse tlamehile hore di ye bathong di a delaya how are you going to make sure hore no ntho tsena tse tshwana le tse tswa utswa di-cable hore di-train ha o tlamehile di ise batho mesebetsing jwalo hore a di etsahale ke efe tharollo e le tlatla le yona potso ya dabedi ke batla ho tseba hore re dula mahaeng ho di-villages a re dula ho di-villages o fumana hore di-road show tse tsa diterene a diyo nakong e ngata o di bona fela ho thwa mohlomong ke mona Alwan North ke la ho kalama train Burgersdorp o fumana hore di-road show tseno mabapi le diterene a di etsahale mona ho rural areas. How are you going to make sure hore di a etsahala hore batho ba tseba hore no a o sebedisa train ke tsena di-service tse teng e tsamaya ka dinako tsena o tlamehile o foune o utlwa hore train e yang Joburg from Burgersdorp to Joburg e tswa neneng o fana batho a bana tsebo ka nthwena and then potso ya ka o katela ilena if kune strike sa baqhubi be-train nabasebenzi ingaba ke ngoku if siqhube for a week ingaba ikhona i-refund kwaba bantu bebesethenge itikiti for a month imibuzo yami emithathu lenza mamela Takalani Radio.
Thank you for representing the listeners of Alwan North, Takalani Radio. Thank you very much. And now let's go to Attersville. Ritswere Untate George, listening to Peli FM. Tate George, you're on air. Umunati ujo Tate George.
a re teng ke dumedisa Auscon ka mo studio and then ke ne le
question tse 3 tse gore ke batlang go di maybe a se kone ka kgona go araba tsona a kopa go tshwara ge gore ba tlo etsa a course ya go ba train driver e ka gore go ne di university or maybe di colleges tse gore o ka yang for tsona tse gore o ka trainang for ba train driver. And then you have 2 questions like which subject you can choose from high school, maybe what over a train driver. And then give us other opportunities or career opportunities more railway transport.
You're asking very pertinent question, Tate George. Differently. Thank you. Thank you. We had agreed that this is what we're going to do. We will take 3 questions. We will get Mekoni, our black belt instructor, to engage the listeners with these questions, and we will help one another where we might have omitted 1 or 2 questions because we're taking notes as we're asking us all these difficult questions. We will start all the way in Klerksdorp. Mekoni, ke wena phela. Only black belt.
Okay, Dumela Ntate Tshepo. Can I speak?
No, yeah, you see Ntate Tshepo now. You know, he has a radio. He's listening to his radio station. He's not on the phone. You see, I know when he was asking that question, he was asking for the benefit of everybody. I know he might have asked the question in Sesotho. You can answer the question in any language. Any language.
Okay, but preferably English.
You can respond in English, yes.
Okay, I think for the benefit of everyone, just to recap, Tshepo raised a questions on overcrowding of trains
What
and the reliability of the service and safety and security. Now, when I started, I referred to a long list that I have, which makes an efficient rail service. And Tshepo has already raised the 3, which are a problem in the system, which we are looking at improving through our delivery entity, PRASA. In terms of rail operations, so when you're in a train, when a train is made, there are specific numbers of people. I'm trying to educate, remember, listeners?
Yes.
There's a specific number of people that have to be in a coach. There's a number that's allowed to sit and a number that's allowed to stand. So at that stage, you would say the train is fine. So you would say it's 100%, but the moment you move to 150%, that's when you have some passengers who have to stand shoulder to shoulder, holding onto the rail at the top.
Breaking the boundaries.
Yes.
Some people don't like that. They like their personal spaces.
Yes. And then you get to 180%, where you find that many passengers are in physical contact, so very close to one another, and they can maybe manage to read a newspaper. When you get to 200%, all the 3 things that I mentioned cannot happen. The passengers are packed tightly. They can still manage to read a newspaper. When you get to 250%, then none of these things would happen. Passengers sway with motion of the train because the train is in motion and it's moving, but they cannot bring their body back to normal position or even move their hands. And remember, on a train, usually you've got females and males. So you can imagine the discomfort between the 2 genders. And that is not what is needed. So the situation that Tshepo referred to seems to be between the 200% and the 250% that I referred to, which is not ideal. Usually what causes situations for trains to be like this is when a service is unreliable. So when people know that they have to be on a train for a certain hour, they move closer to the station and get onto the platform. And if the train does not arrive at that time, more passengers keep on coming. And when the train arrives, maybe it's 30 minutes, 45 minutes, depending on the hours that it's late for, then everyone wants to go into the train, and there's the discomfort. Everybody wants to go home. And these are the things that as government we're trying to address in terms of the infrastructure upgrades and also in terms of introducing the new trains. In the past week, the president was launching the new factory in Nigel in Danota that's going to manufacture trains. It would be 600 coaches, 600 trains, and 3,600 trains at the end of the 10 years. And the next 10 years, we'll then have more.
You
And
see,
we'll have another one.
Department of Transport is on the groove. You see, we are talking about last week launch of presidential rail project. We are talking last week. We're talking this week. You know, in KZN, I promise you, Google, you'll see what the department launched there. You see, at times I get to believe in Africa, South Africa is the second to none when it comes of our infrastructure. I don't know. I think the department is taking some kind of medication. The speed that they're delivering is so double. I mean, I'm telling you, we had visitors last week. They attended a wedding here. They were staying in some guest that guest house that I frequent. They are from Europe. Can you believe when we're picking up these people from the airport into the guest house? They say, no, man, please, tell us, is this South Africa? This road infrastructure, it's midnight and it's so lit. No, what is going on? We are saying, look, you haven't seen nothing yet. I know you will be going to all these places. What you see here is the taste that you will find in terms of our road infrastructure across the country. Now, I can hear there's someone who's trying to call here. They are jealous because you are on the groove, Mekoni. And I know there's Kofifi Community Radio Station. They are calling me on my mobile number. Kofifi Radio Station, the number to call is 0800 314 446. I know we need to respond to Patco and we need to respond to George. Uhlumisa, I'm telling you, she does not want to wait. Hlumisa, okay, before Mpulaye, you are on air.
Hi, good evening.
A very good evening, ma'am. How are you?
I'm good, thank you, sir. I'm listening from Elgin, FN in Grabouw.
Oh, Elgin. I love that province.
Good evening, Somisa.
Hi, good evening. I've got few questions, but I could hear that you guys at Tepo and Patco, they already asked questions about the rape. Women are getting raped because most commuters in Cape Town, in the Western Cape, actually, they're using a train. So this thing of women getting raped on the trains is really serious. It is really, it's happening a lot. It's one question, but I could hear that you guys spoke about that, the overload. But the other question that I want to ask you guys, regarding with people that are committing suicide, there's a lot of issues like that around the Western Cape. If I think about taking my own life, then I decide to go on the railway line, So is there anything that you as the PRASA or the department, DOT, that you can do just to, I know you've been trying hard to Uganda, Londo, but it's still happening, and it's happening. It's a lot. The rate is high, so it's really a concern.
It's one
of the questions that I have.
Thank you very much, Siswam. Siswam, Mekon is going to respond to you, but before I forget, there's one thing I would like to say, not only to you, to all the listeners. Tomorrow, South Africa is hosting a gender-based violence and femicide. Tomorrow, from the 1st to the 2nd of November. This will be transmitted to the community radio stations as well. So please make a date, get to listen from 6 to 7. What is it that the women in particular of South Africa have decided to do to undo the scourge of women and children abuse and femicide in South Africa. You are raising a very pertinent question, Sis Lumisa. Sis Connie is going to respond. Thank you, and you are representing not only the people in Grabo and Elgin, you are representing the people of Western Cape. Thank you very much, Sis Wam. Listen to the radio. Okay, Sis Connie, at this point, let's go back to We Owe Patco, where Patco was talking about the cable theft that results into the delays of the trains, talking about the lack of the outreach programs that teaches the people in the rural areas about the rail timetable and all that stuff, talking about the strikes that will be initiated by the drivers or the staff that will go at times for weeks, the possibility of refunding the people who would have paid for the tickets. Those were the questions from Patco. Thank you.
Okay. I'm really excited because one of the things that I really would love to leave the station having done is to also demystify the sector, demystify the railways, because they are physical in nature. So you see the station, you see the rail track, and you see the overhead signaling, you see the communication systems, and you just think this is a foreign object, forgetting that this is an object which you as an individual have to relate to. And what has come up is that relationship that people have with the infrastructure, because the infrastructure is supposed to benefit them, to do something for the commuters. But what I'm hearing is that they are not getting that. And these elements that are coming out, they are human related. So there's a human face to infrastructure and to the railways. The things that we see and the things that are being done to enable their operations. So what it says is that there are some elements missing which we are trying to correct as government, because the sector itself is capital intensive, and the initiatives also are long term. So the planning takes a bit of time, the implementation takes a bit of time because there's procurement involved. There's also planning and stakeholder engagements with all the different parties, and there's the personnel within the organization, which ideally should be capacitated, should be knowledgeable, should be passionate, and should be experienced, because if you're not passionate, you will not be able to deliver. So going back to the issue of cable theft and security issues. Yes, because historically, people have looked at the railways as something they can attack. If you remember how the history of the country was. So all those social and community elements are coming up. There are people out there who believe that they can go and benefit from the system while forgetting that they are causing a lot of damage. So there are initiatives in terms of the safety and security. PRASA has its own security personnel. They've also got some some private security personnel. And in the Western Cape, actually, last week the minister, together with the province, Western Cape province, and also the city, there's a partnership that the rail operator has with the two parties, just to improve on the safety and security within the system. So what we need to do is to combine the forces, to combine the security forces, but also what we need is the assistance from the communities, because the communities know what is happening. Quite often they know what is the cause when something needs to happen and how it had happened, and we would like them to come forward with information whilst the government is working with all the security clusters to improve on the issues and also come up with strategies and make sure that they are enforced.
Okay, that is a cable.
Yes. So
And then now-
roadshow.
Let's go to the road shows.
Okay, what is happening in terms of the road shows? Because the commuter rail is within cities and the townships. And we know that people would live in the cities and then go back into the villages and all of that. What we are getting here is that we need to expand, because if we just focus on where the people that we are servicing live, then we leave out the other people. So it would be grateful if people can maybe write in to us and give us those suggestions, so that we can look at the different rail corridors that we have and make sure that when stakeholder engagements happen, then we make sure that we also cover those areas. Of course, we probably will have to work with the local ward committees or the councillors or any other community representatives.
Now let's go to the last one from Patco. The question of refund. Asnamal. Stenga matikiti, the next thing, near strike. We can't use this ticket next week because it's invalid or it's outdated.
Yeah. Quite a valid point. I mean, usually I know that what PRASA would do if people have missed a train and they have not used a ticket, then they would arrange alternative transport for them, maybe buses. But what I know is that has not been happening. There should be a number to call for PRASA if they have those specific issues, so that they can then be addressed by the customer services. But I still encourage people to write in, so that we also have a sense of the numbers, these numbers that are happening, because remember, the department is a shareholder department and we have a rail operator, so we don't get involved in the day-to-day activities. So if we get, the queries coming through, then we're able to get a sense and then package them and also provide the guidance and advice as a shareholder.
There you are, Patco. Thank you for that question. I know you were asking for the benefit of the country at large. You see, the advantage of radio and of a phone-in program in particular, the feedback is immediate. People don't have to wait for weeks, waiting for a response after having written a letter complaining about the refunds. Right now, we know if we are confronted with that, there's a number to call that we are going to try and propagate in the course of this program. Should one be confronted with that? Because I know 100 rand might be nothing to you, but to me, I promise you, even half of that amount is enough to sustain my family with bread for the entire week. So there's no money that is so insignificant. Thank you very, very much, Patco. We will try and get the number. It's very, very pertinent. And now let's go back to George. George raised 3 questions. One had to do with what is it that one would have to acquire to drive the train in terms of the training subject at school, high school, and other opportunities found. I can see Nonkululeko, you are there. Nonkululeko?
Good day, Leonard.
Good day, Siswam Kuchan. And how is Uppington?
Uppington is always nice to be at Uppington.
Wow. Okay.
And good evening to your guest, Mekoni, also. My question, I just had one question for Mekoni, and it was a question that was asked by Utsepo, but I have a follow-up based on what Mekoni answered on it. Mekoni, you did mention that the department is planning to bring in 600 trains to ensure that overcrowding doesn't happen, and also that commuters are safe on trains. What I wanted to know, how will the department monitor the situation given the 600 trains coming in? As you have mentioned that commuters usually move closer to platforms when it's time to board a train, and then without knowing if they are on the train that they should be, they just get on the train, and then that's how overcrowding starts to happen. So I wanted to know, with the 600 trains that the department is planning to implement, how will they monitor overcrowding in trains to ensure that it doesn't happen? And also, how will the department from now on ensure that passenger safety on trains also, to ensure that the passengers are safe with this? That's the only question I have for you, ma'am.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Very much, Sister Nkululeko. Listen to the radio, and that will be Riverside. Now, let's go back to Peli, to George. George, he wants to drive a train. George wants to channel his son to be the train driver. The qualifications or the kind of training necessary for this, subjects at school and other opportunities in general.
Okay. In answering George, I just need to also, clarify that there are a lot of qualifications that people can go for in order to join the rail sector. I'm going to break them down. There you've got your engineering ones, and you've got your technical workers, and you've got your train drivers and train assistants, where George wants an answer on, your train control officers, functional yard operators, locomotives and wagon building and repairs. I spoke about the rail manufacturing factory. They are going to build factories in South Africa with components that are going to be, some of them will come from overseas, but 65% of the components will be coming from South Africa. Then you also have contract managers and legal personnel and social scientists and stakeholder managers and assistants. The list go on, administrators, people in rail safety, and people in communications and events. But going back to train driving, when we started the show, I did say that we've got the freight section and the freight industry and the passenger one. So the train driving qualifications are done by the operators. So if you want to drive a train which transports goods, you will have to do that qualification with the operator, which would be Transnet. There's a school which they do technical training. And for the passenger ones, you have to do it with PRASA, and if you want to do it with Gautrain, when there are opportunities, you'll do it with them and other private operators. And the reason for that is that the technology is different. So you can't just go and drive a goods train whilst you are trained to drive a passenger train. So in terms of the entry level, mathematical literacy at an NQF level 3 for train driving, and communication at a level 3. And of course, there will be ongoing training as you continue with your work all the time.
Oh, Mina, I'm happy. I hope Untate George is happy. But if he's not, he can call again. At this point, it was more of a statement from Elgin. There was a very, very painful call from Hlumisa. People talk. A responsible government must listen. And after having listened, act. I'm sure Sis Hlumisa is very excited. Maybe she has not interacted with the deployment that has started last week, basically to ensure that things of this nature, I think of the past. Gone are the days when our South African brothers and sisters, our mothers, are going to be victims of these senseless crimes. Big up to the Department of Transport, a very responsive approach indeed. We will monitor certainly whether the security personnel deployed is up to speed. They actually do what they are supposed to be doing. We'll certainly be taking stock of what is happening. For instance, next week's program, we are going to, between now and next week Wednesday, we are going to request people to drop an email, to phone us and tell us or give us a feedback to make sure that the security forces that are deployed there to protect us are visible. That is very, very critical, visibility as a deterrent. Even if we are planning to go there, once you see them marching with shining shoes to kick all those who are trying to disrupt our lives, it's a positive step in the right direction. Now, Usis Nonkululeko from Uppington was very receptive to the suggestion of 600 trains, but she raised a concern. Can we try address Sis Nonkululeko?
I'll certainly do that, but I also just need to respond to the second question from Hlumisa. It was about people committing suicide on the rail network. I think I also just want to say that this is an international problem. And the Japanese system is one of the most efficient ones. They have all the good things that you can think of in terms of rail services, reliability and all of those things. But this is also a problem for them. This is just one problem that they are struggling with as a country. But when it comes to South Africa, because the network is open, so you see when the train travels from the city to another to a township, there's no fencing. And this is one of the things the regulator is enforcing, is trying to enforce to the rail operator to say that you need to secure your network. And this is one of the issues that will also assist in terms of the criminal elements that get into the rail space, because now they get in openly and easily without going through, some walls or a fence.
You see, the beauty of radio, Mekoni, as you are explaining something here, you see, when we say radio is responsive, it's immediate in terms of feedback. As you are explaining here, the deployment of the security, social media, someone has sent something. They are saying the security that Mekoni is talking about, today they've made their first arrest, meaning that some people were doing something and someone was arrested today by this security you're talking about. It means this thing is working, and it means radio is good because we're able to get the feedback. Now, again,
That's
here
pleasing.
in the social media, someone was saying, what is it that we can do as a community to play specific roles to ensure that we guard our trains? Is it advisable to form forums in cases where people are found guilty for burning trains? He is asking, or she is asking, are we going to see serious consequences? It's like people are being arrested and due to the lack of evidence, people are being released. There's no incentive to stop this. Now, this person wants to know, what is it that we can do as the community beyond just reporting, hey, I see the train getting burned. Someone is burning. What is it? Practically, can we form forums? He's asking that. And then they are saying again, my last contribution, the role of women and people with disabilities, especially young people in the rail sector. This is an active listener. This is the person who's following the program. Now, can we try and address this? And we have 4 minutes.
Oh,
Yes, I
Only 4
told you,
minutes.
time flies.
Okay.
Don't worry.
so which one do I go?
It's
Should
up
I
to you.
Get back to Nonkululeko.
Yes.
I think just to get back to Nonkulileko's one, I did say at the beginning of the program that the department performs oversight on the rail operator. So since the project was introduced, the program to introduce the new trains, the department has been involved together with the DTI and National Treasury. So with all the interested parties, we have a structure that monitors the program. We meet on a quarterly basis, or when there's a need, we then would engage with PRASA. But in between the quarters, we do work, and we also try to assist with interventions that PRASA would need. So this is ongoing, and it will be up to the end of the the rolling stock program, delivery program. I'll quickly go to the social media comments. I didn't get the name, I didn't get who sent it, but it's exciting stuff. It's also these things that are here are two of the things that I had as some of the key elements that make an efficient rail operations. The role of women and people with disabilities. With the new infrastructure that is being upgraded, there's a program that PRASA has to get into. Actually, they've started in some of the stations. At the department, there's a specialist who deals with universal accessibility. She advises, she's a specialist in public transport, but she also advises the rail component. It is going to take a bit of a while, but there are standards that are also being put together, and we're also monitoring that, especially with the new, the busy stations at your A and B corridors. That is something that is certainly being taken care of. And the role of women, I said at the beginning, we need to demystify the fact that the rail sector is a male dominated. It's male dominated. Of course, it is, but I mean, having been in transport for I think almost a total 20 years, if I think of where I started. Yes.
20 years?
Yes, I started as a researcher at the CSIR.
Wow.
Then did some freelance consulting.
I told you, black belt.
So what it says is that we need to encourage our young women. There are opportunities out there, and if need be, will also depend on and the listeners and the recommendations that we get. We could come up with some mentorship programs, but there's a big opportunity for women to play in the sector, business related and also professionally related. But I also want to say about women is that they also need to be assertive. Don't be shy when we get in there. We all learn. We all started somewhere, because we get into the meetings and into the boardrooms with males who have been brought up different to us. But if we are assertive and we understand that we also need to be there in that space, then I think we're going to make a big difference.
Mekon is saying no one is going to give you anything. You go out there and take it, because it presupposes that you are asking a favor from someone who believes it's theirs. Go and take it. No one is going to give you. Remember earlier on we said we'll provide you listeners the numbers. The Metro Rail number, should you have anything, here is the number, is 0800 65 64 63. It's so easy. 0800, you don't even have to memorize that. Now you count downwards. 65, 64, 63. That will be the number for you should you detect something. Now for the security, 24 hours, the number is 0800 21 0081. 0800 21 0081. Now, Mekon, we've come to a very interesting part of our program where you will be given an opportunity to ask yourself a question and answer it. This is the part where we're giving you an opportunity to give us your parting shot. What is it that you believe we should have spoken about, but we did not find time? I told you 1 hour was too little, and she was saying, no, 1 hour, what am I going to be saying? 1 hour is too much. Now, I'm telling her, the program is done. She said, no, it cannot be. Now, in the next few seconds, anything you want to say?
Okay, I'm going to start with one that I'm also quite passionate about, youth representation. Okay, because transport is a subject that is learned. Someone who has learned transport planning or transport infrastructure or anything related would be different from someone who has been taught something this year or in the recent times. So it's evolving. And because it's evolving in the periods where ICT is active, and you know how difficult it is for some people to move from their comfort zone into the ICT. So we need them. We need those. And we need the business minds out there. We don't have to stick with what we have. And the youth are the people also that know what is happening in societies. And they've also got the vision for the future. I know where we want to go because I've got it documented. But probably, if you were to compare me with someone young, I'm not going to give my age away.
You did, long time ago. I mean, you've been working in the department for more than 20 years.
No,
we know you are not less than 20 years.
No, that's
Okay,
fine. So
okay.
the youth mind is needed in the industry. They must not be shy, but they must know that they have to be educated. Education is important.
On that powerful education note, we have come to the end of our special broadcast program on rail. I told you, let us say thanks to our guest tonight, Mekoni. Mekoni, it has been an absolute pleasure to do this with you. I hope the department will find it in their heart to bring you once again, because I can see you still want to go on and on. Remember, next week on Wednesday, we're having another program, without forgetting my colleague who has been penning and tilting the camera to make sure that you see this program in our YouTube. I'm talking about Sis Nobubele Mapechana. She's the one who's doing the camera work tonight. She is going to make sure that this program is on our YouTube and in the YouTube of the government. And Tuntate Mfundo all the way in Cape Town. Sibamba ngazo zozibini Tatu Mfundo, and you managed to lend us well. Happy lending. Sisiwamu, say thank you to the listeners.
Well, I'll start with you. Thank you very much, Ndate Lennox, for the opportunity, and to your colleagues and to your team, and to my colleague Sam, who's sitting here with me, and to the listeners for listening and also for the questions. I hope next time we'll have enough time to discuss the other issues that we needed to. I thank you very much.
It's bye-bye from all of us.